I think if we end up losing, and I hope we do not, and if Secretary Clinton wins, it is incumbent upon her to tell millions of people who right now do not believe in establishment politics or establishment economics, who have serious misgivings about a candidate who has received millions of dollars from Wall Street and other special interests. She has got to go out to you and to millions of other people and say, yeah, I think the United States should join the rest of the industrialized world and take on the private insurance companies and the greed of the drug companies and pass a Medicare for all.
Not exactly like I'm going to take one for the team. Bernie Sanders not going anywhere, at least it sounds that way. But with Hillary expected to have another strong performance today, Sanders could be on his way out sooner rather than later. And in a minute, we'll bring in the panel to get into whether he could actually wind up hurting the party by sticking around here as well, having a list of demands when it comes to sticking it to Hillary here. But first, Sanders says he's still in it to win it. The question is, do the numbers add up in any way, shape, or form to that? Let's bring in Andrew for that. And Andrew, is it possible after tonight, California may not even matter?
It's possible, but every other domino has to fall the correct way for Hillary Clinton. And Bernie Sanders is both right and wrong on the math. He's actually still pretty close to Hillary Clinton until you factor in the superdelegates and look ahead to tonight. Hillary Clinton enters today with 1,446 pledged delegates. Those are from the primaries only. We're not counting the superdelegates here. She still needs 937 more. She'd have to win 56% of what's left to win the nomination. But then you add in those superdelegates, and Clinton starts to get very, very close to the nomination. Same math, adding in the 516 superdelegates in Camp Clinton, and she's just 421 away from the nomination. That lowers her magic number to just 23% of the remaining delegates. 23% is easy to get in a proportional delegate system, and that's what all 5 of today's primaries are, proportional by congressional district. So let's assume that Clinton wins about 60% of the delegates today, which is right around where she was in New York last week. That makes her best case scenario tonight a very good one indeed. She needs 421 to win the nomination. If she picks up 60% tonight, you can add another 277 or so delegates to her column, which would leave her just 144 away from being the Democratic nominee. And Rich, you can start looking down the calendar at that point and seeing she can wrap this up if all goes well by the beginning of June. If not, California and New Jersey will certainly put her over the top on June 7th.
You know, Dominic, for anyone who thinks this is the way it always works, Hillary and Obama had a brutal primary, and it was really ugly. The campaigns, certainly the candidates themselves, there was no love lost at the end. But she said at the end, tell me what you want me to do, tell me where you want me to go, I'll go out and do it. Forget the reasonings, whether it was for self-interest or matter. She chin up, took one for the team here and did whatever she had to do. Sanders isn't going by the same playbook, and he's got less of a chance at this point than she did at the same calendar 8 years ago. Is there a chance that he can do some harm here?
Of course. Richard, we can play with the numbers with all due respect to that excellent report. It's over. Sanders was never, I didn't say not going to be, he was never going to be the Democratic nominee. This was a process that was played out as part of the political process and on and on and on. He had a good message, pulls out thousands of people, but it doesn't translate, but does not translate to the voting booth. He pulls out 30, 40,000 people, but it does not translate to the voting booth. Right now, he's not being a good team player. Clinton did exactly what you just said. I was there covering her around the country in D.C. the day she dropped out, but she knew she would live to fight another day. Now, Sanders is 74 years old. He's almost in denial. Trump has already started quoting Sanders, saying that Hillary's not qualified to be president.
Dominic, you were in D.C. in 2008 covering Hillary Clinton the day she dropped out. Do you remember what day that was?
Yeah, I believe it was in June.
It was June 7th, and she continued campaigning right up to the end. She toned it down a little bit in the last month or so, but she stayed in it until the exact same point where I think Bernie's going to wind up staying.
But Bernie has no shot.
Right? They were you're talking about 2 different candidacies here. The second she lost the nomination, she was already thinking to the next 4 years. Bernie Sanders never thought that his campaign would even take it this far. It was an activist campaign. He had a message to spread, and you know, he has successfully pulled her left in this primary, but we were never supposed to actually think that he was going to be competitive for the nomination, and he's not running again. So it's a different kind of grassroots message campaign as opposed to her campaign, which actually she was trying to become president and had her eye on 4 years later.
Didn't Jessica put her finger on it, which is that Steve, she isn't going to give him, nor is he asking for a cabinet position. He's not running another race. Best he can do is have a prominent spot at the convention for a speech. There's not any really disincentive for him to say, what I got to lose? You know, I'm going to keep banging my drum. I'm going to keep my 40 mil or whatever I got left here because I can use it for whatever I want afterwards, right? There's no reason for him to go quietly into the good night.
Well, there is one. He doesn't want a Republican president of the United States, certainly not the front runners today, Donald Trump or Ted Cruz. That would be, in Bernie's mind and many of the rest of us, really a very bad thing for America, whether it's the next Supreme Court majority or the direction of U.S. foreign policy, who has their finger, as you said, on the nuclear button, etc. So he has a real good reason not to want a Republican president. He did get carried away with what was, I think, an idealistic effort to present his case to the American people. I think he was blown away with the support he got financially and electorally. But so he's dug this hole, now he's got to climb his way out. I'll say this, he is very important to Hillary Clinton's election because he is the only person who can help his supporters make the transition to her and do so with as much integrity as possible.
Where are they going to go? They're not going to vote for Trump, whoever the Republican nominee. You think they'll stay home? Didn't we hear the same thing 8 years ago, which was those Hillary supporters? There's no way, no how, no chance I'm going to vote for Obama after that primary, and they still did.
Richard, can I point out one thing? Excuse me, Jessica. Do you remember the Bush versus Gore race when Ralph Nader decided to run as an independent, and he took away all those votes from Al Gore, saying Al Gore and George W. Bush were the same. Now that was just pure nonsense. And if you look at the record of the presidency of George W. Bush, it was a horrifically irresponsible move on Nader's part to keep those people from voting for Gore, and it would be equally so if the Bernie Sanders supporters stayed home.
All you have to do is look to the 2008 Democratic primary, which we just said was far more contested with this one. Turnout is down 20% so far from 2008. They're not coming out in the same way. She is not. Those voters that care about those issues are, honestly, I think Trump has a chance to get some of them. The younger voters and the angry. Yes, absolutely.
You think African American voters and Hispanic American voters and women are not going to be energized?
She's been getting the minority vote.
She's talking about Sanders' whole message was corporate greed. What do you think Trump appears for these kids for?
No, he's the same populist message of America's losing.
I must
we're
have missed
losing
him
jobs
at Zuccotti
to
Park
trade.
with Operation.
It is a similar populist economic message. I'm not saying it's automatic, but I think he has a better shot at those voters than she does.
I think you're reaching really quickly, the two of you. Is there a running mate you can think of, other than Elizabeth Warren, that Hillary could pick that would mitigate some of either the concern here over both losing the Sanders voters and also motivating the base?
I think you're probably. I think one of the HUD Secretary Castro is a likely candidate. He'll play to the minority base within the Democratic Party. You could get, Senator Merkley or something like that, but for the most part, no, not somebody with that prominence.
And Dom, do you think in Philadelphia, right after she gets off the stage, she turns to her aide and says it's time to go back to the middle, or does she stay on the left because she's got to keep the Sanders kids?
She's going to be somewhat in the middle of going to the middle and staying to the left. She's got to turn.
What does that mean?
What I'm trying to say is she's going to be halfway to what you just said. Because remember, she's basically become a black activist during this primary, talking about police brutality. Whites respect the rights of blacks. We don't understand. And so she can't completely ignore all of that. She's got every police brutality victim at rallies with her around the country.
I'm going to put
I
in a
think
vote.
he will
I'm
play.
putting in a fast vote for Sherrod Brown from Ohio. I believe he'll be the
think he
nominee.
Elizabeth Warren will never be on the Clinton ticket. Let's say that.
And with that consensus, we go to the break. Now, remember when Trump said he's going to be more presidential, just as Jessica said, just an act, trust me? Well, he was going to not use the nicknames, the personal attacks. That worked for a few hours. But the old Donald's back, and unbelievably, he could actually be getting worse. We'll show you.